Nastavak videa o progonu ovog doktora.
I want to talk a bit about the role played by the pro-Israel media in having Professor McDonald suspended. In the days following McDonald's making of the fateful comments about Mossad, various news outlets launched a public smear campaign against him. The first was a hit piece by the Daily Mail, which labelled McDonald's remarks as a bizarre conspiracy theory. But is that really a fair description of what McDonald said? As I've noted before, Israel, unlike Iran, had the motive, means, and modus operandi to carry out the arson attacks on Jewish targets here. And while I personally doubt that Israel was behind the fires, largely because I think they were too amateurishly planned and executed, I don't think there's anything bizarre or conspiratorial about what Professor McDonald said. The next major hit piece was published in The Australian, Murdoch's largest newspaper in the country. The article produced in whole a letter written to McDonald by Alex Rivchin, who's a lawyer and the co-CEO of the highly influential Executive Council of Australian Jewry, or the ECAJ. But what the Australian didn't mention in the article is Rivchin's long history of advocacy in support of the Israeli army, including during its genocide in Gaza. For example, over the past 2 years, Rivchin has made myriad public posts on X in which he has praised the Israeli military with comments such as, "Glory to the heroes of the IDF," "Bless the heroes of the IDF," and "Thank you to the heroic female soldiers of the IDF. We love you and we're with you." In late December 2023, when Israel was almost 3 months into its genocidal offensive in Gaza, Rivchin did a post on X promoting a fundraising project for trauma recovery for Israeli soldiers returning from combat. The post, which features a photo of Rivchin wearing one of the bands, reads, "Wear it with pride and show your solidarity with the heroes of the IDS, the defenders of Israel." The Australian also didn't mention in its hit piece against McDonald the fact that the ECAJ, on whose letterhead Rivchin's correspondence was written, has also openly advocated for Israel in the course of its systematic campaign of destruction of Gaza's healthcare system.
Užas.
For example, back in November 2023, while Israel was laying siege to the Indonesian hospital just outside the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza, Foreign Minister Penny Wong released a pretty weak statement expressing concern about the attacks and encouraging Israel and Hamas to take steps towards a ceasefire. The ECAJ responded by releasing a joint statement with another key Israel lobby group, the Zionist Federation of Australia, in which they claimed to be highly concerned about Wong's comments and seeking to justify Israel's attacks on hospitals on the assertion that they were being used for military purposes, an assertion which has repeatedly been debunked. So these are the kind of people who carried out the witch hunt against Professor McDonald. People who have lobbied tirelessly to advance the interests of a foreign, genocidal entity and who have absolutely no right to claim any kind of moral high ground. As with the rest of the lobbyists who campaigned against Professor McDonald, Rivchin resorted to the predictable slur of anti-Semitism, a tried and tested tactic of the lobby to silence any criticism of Israel. But the reality is that McDonald never said anything about Jews. His comments were about a foreign spy agency, and so the only way they could be anti-Semitic is if you think Mossad represents Jewish people in general, which is arguably anti-Semitic itself. Indeed, according to the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which the ECAJ and other lobby groups have campaigned for so strenuously, holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the State of Israel is a contemporary example of anti-Semitism. So if Professor McDonald's comments weren't really anti-Semitic, what's the real reason the Israel lobby is going after him? Well, I'll give you my take. By challenging the claim that Iran was behind the arson attacks, McDonald challenged the Australian government's sole basis for breaking ties with Iran and prescribing its IRGC as a terrorist organisation. And who's been leading the push for our government to do that all these years? The Israel lobby. Let's take Rivchin, for example. Back in 2011, when Rivchin was the spokesperson for the Zionist Federation in the UK, he advocated for the right of Israel to attack Iran militarily.
And it simply will not tolerate a nuclear Iran. And I think we have sadly gotten to that point where if the world is not prepared to confront this global problem, I think Israel will have to act unilaterally.
In 2018, Rivchin defended President Trump's decision to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal that President Obama had negotiated.
So it's a bad deal. And I think we're seeing now not just a repudiation of the deal, but a repudiation of the whole failed strategy of engaging with Iran.
In 2022, the ECAJ, of which Rivchin was now the co-CEO, provided written submissions to a Senate inquiry into Iran proposing various recommendations, including for the IRGC to be listed as a terrorist organization. And when Israel finally launched its unlawful unilateral military strikes on Iran in June this year, Rivkin not only defended the attacks, but also specifically the killing of Iranian scientists.
The top 3 generals in the Iranian army have been knocked off. 2 of their leading nuclear scientists, the majority of their nuclear facilities have been hit. And I think this would be a real game changer in the region. I think something that was badly needed and certainly acts in the interest of peace in the long term.
Now, these are just some of countless public statements that Rivkin has made in support of Israeli military aggression in the Middle East. But as awful as I think his comments are, I would never use them to campaign for him to lose his ability to practice law. That's because I believe that lawyers, like doctors, should be free to express their political opinions just like everyone else in our society. And that's why I believe that Australians should be very concerned about the lobby's campaign against Professor McDonald, regardless of whether or not you agree with what he said.
Da,
After
da.
all, isn't that what democracy is all about?
Znači doktora vrhunskog, znači znanstvenika, njega su maknuli, urotili su se protiv njega na sve moguće načine, znači ovo je čovjek koji mi je spasio život. Urotili su se protiv čovjeka na sve moguće načine, a šta potiče genocid u Gazi, to je okej. To je okej, koliko je to sve licemjerno, koliko je to sve odvratno, koliko je to sve prljavo. Znači u Hrvatsku su infiltrirani do Ibera. Iššuruju, znači Srbija i Izrael, taj židovski lobi, cionistički, pogotovo Goldstein. Da. Bila je emisija nekad gdje se totalno pogubio, znači lažu. Oni i Srbi žive od laži. Jednostavno oni žive od laži, jedni i drugi isti su, imaju pretenziju na tuđe i glume žrtvu i cijelo vrijeme okreću pilu naopako. Međutim, kao što sam već i prije rekla, pila će se okrenuti na pravu stranu i okreće se na pravu stranu i prepilit će te laži sotonske. Tako da dosta je bilo sataniziranja, maltretiranja od strane šačice bez kičmenjaka i niš koristi.